The pride, passion, and pageantry of college football lives here. This is the Paul Finebaum Show, Hour 3 podcast.
We welcome you back. The second half of the program is live. We talked a lot early on about the death today of Don Shula. If you are just joining us, he was 90 years old, one of the great coaches in NFL history, had the undefeated Dolphins in 72, won 2 Super Bowls. And that's just part of the story. Let's get back to the calls and check in with Joe, who was in Houston, Texas. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Paul. I love your show. I really appreciate it. I hadn't called in a while.
You. Great to have you
back. I
back.
want to say go Tigers. I went to 10 games last year, and it was a magical season. And I'm such a Tiger fan. I don't know if anybody's brought this up, but I would sign a waiver. And I could not sue LSU, anyone affiliated with LSU. I would sign a waiver, take a picture of me, whatever, my ID, and let me go watch the game. I think there would be tons of fans that would do that.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. Right now, I don't think we really know what they're going to do, but it could come down to that.
Yeah, but wouldn't that take the colleges off the hook? I mean,
yeah, but I think what they're going to, that's part of it. But I think what they're going to have to do is follow some guideline, and we don't have the guidelines yet.
Well,
but there has to be more to it than that. But I clearly hear you. So you're saying you would risk anything just to go see your team play.
Well, I'm looking at the data, too. It seems not to be as bad as they first said it would, and not even close. So, yes, I would definitely weigh that. If I thought there was a chance I could get it, but I feel like I'm healthy, I could. My
question, though, Joe, and I'm not being a contrarian here, but how do you know what someone else? You're perfectly healthy, but how do you know what's going on around you?
I don't, and right now I would be willing to roll the dice to go see my Tigers repeat. Hey, I got one other thing.
Oh, no, Joe, hold on. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I have to stop here and listen to you say this. You have just said, and stop me if I'm wrong, you would be willing to risk getting sick to see your football team play. Is that correct?
Yes. According to the data that I see, yes, I would do that today. What date
are you referring to here?
Today's the 4th or 5th of May.
May 4th. Tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo.
Yes, and so I would, Paul. I just don't see the data and the information that is that. I know it's bad. I know people are dying. I know the elderly are getting it really bad. I know people who are compromised with their health are getting it really bad too. I see that. I'm not disparaging any of that, and I'm sorry for everyone's loss. But from what I see, yes, I would sign a waiver and go watch my Tigers play football.
Well, I don't know if it will come to that, but I appreciate. I
know it's hard to believe, but well,
it is hard to believe because, and I'm not being an alarmist here, but you just don't know, and you could get this disease and be fine. You might be fine, and you might never get it, but
you're right.
You could also be unlucky, and that's a risk that I don't know how many people are willing to. But this is the first time I've heard someone say that they would be. To see their LSU Tigers or any team, they would be willing to risk it all. Glad to hear from you. Be well. Jay is up next. Hello, Jay.
How's it going, Paul?
It is going great. Thank you.
I don't have any certain subject to talk about. It's my first time calling. You know, I hear that I'm a first caller, but I am when I was a young man, I'm 47 now. When I was a young man, 12, 13, all the way up till I was about 16, I'm from Birmingham. I read your articles.
Well, thank you.
My papa, my grandfather, Alabama fan, I'm an Alabama fan, but my papa said, Paul calls it, he sees it. Whether it's right or wrong against Alabama, you know. And I just want to thank you for, like, letting me see that there are different opinions to everything. You don't always have to like one thing. You can call that thing that you like.
You know what's interesting, Jay, and we go back now 35 years, 25 years, whatever period we're talking about here. And what I was writing then would not get a lot of attention today, but the reason why I got attention when I first started writing those columns, and I was a fairly young person at the time, is that no one had ever done that before in Alabama. And, and that's really why it was a big deal. And I know a lot of people around the country are going like, I've never heard this guy say anything that was, that crazy. But, I started writing a newspaper column in my 20s, at a newspaper, right after Coach Bryant had, resigned and retired and died. So it was strange. Nobody could understand it. It was, the first one who'd ever done it. And, today, I think some of the criticism, well, I don't know, they would still be pretty serious, but that's why, people like your grandfather and others like stopped and said, I can't believe this guy's doing it. And then they would get into it a little bit more. I really thank you for saying that. That means a great deal to me, and great to catch up. I hope you'll call again. Cat Daddy would not have blinked an eye if he had been a reader back then. He would have said, right on.
You got that right, Paul. Condolences to the Shula family. I was a big Miami fan. I always pulled for them. We didn't have an NFL football team in South Carolina for a long time. We pulled for Dallas and Miami. And, of course, when Atlanta come along, we got to pulling for them, and now we go with the Panthers. But I'd like to ask you a question. Junior and I was talking today, and he'd seen up on the Facebook that ESPN took a survey of a little over 1,000 people, and they asked them, would you watch a football game with no one in the stands? And 76% said they would. Have you seen that survey?
I have, yes.
What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm never surprised by what fans say. Are you?
No, not at all. I would watch it, though. I mean, I really would. And another thing ESPN is supposed to do, they're going to start broadcasting Korean baseball.
I heard that. Yeah, late tonight, late at night, early in the morning. Are you going to be up at 1:00 watching your favorite Korean team play baseball?
I know one thing I ain't gonna be doing: order no Korean hot dogs. If you get my meaning, bark, bark.
There must be a. Is this mic on?
Doing a good job, Big Paul, and hope everybody's well out there, and wash those hands and keep hope alive.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to go back to our caller here, and I heard it correctly, and so did most of you. He said he would be willing to sign a waiver. He was an LSU football fan from Houston, and he would be willing to get sick with the COVID-19 to see his football team. He said based on the data that he had read. I was just simply asking him to repeat it. I wanted to make sure I heard it correctly, and it looks like I had. We will take a break. More of your phone calls when we come back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back to the program. Randy is in Arkansas. Randy, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, Paul. First-time caller.
Great to have you on.
I had a little comment about the disease and maybe dying from it and all that. I do have a degree in mathematics from a long time ago from Ball State.
Okay.
But I did my career as a computer science person. And anyhow, I think if you really want to know the facts, you get a hold of a life insurance actuary and ask him which is more hazardous, going to a ball game and sitting there watching your team play or driving to the ball game and driving home.
Probably say driving home.
Exactly. Well, if you're drinking. But even if you didn't drink, I mean, I figure it's more hazardous to be on the road driving than it is to die from this disease.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not good with math. I am.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know whether your people had any kind of connections to where they could actually talk to a life insurance.
Yeah, I'm sure we could.
And
I think if you look at the 68,000 people who have died so far, I'm guessing. You tell me. A pretty large number of those come from nursing homes. And you.
Well, they did say, Paul, the other day they let it. I forget who I was watching, but they let it slip that somebody died from the coronavirus that was on hospice.
Yeah, I mean, who knows with the statistics, and my guess is they're. Yeah, no,
yeah.
I do. But I also would guess that the numbers are probably higher than we have seen so far, because they're in a lot of places where people are dying, especially in the Northeast, it's absolute chaos, and it's probably easier just to write. But bottom line is it's a serious situation. I don't know anybody who wants it. I do know a number of people that have had it, and they've all described it as a nightmare. And some people are going to deal with that better than others. And in a normal time, I think you probably would be okay. And I think we're getting closer to a normal period right now.
Well, I agree with what happened with the shutdown and all, because we didn't have the resources to fight it. All the hospitals, normal operating.
No, absolutely. It was. It did catch everyone by surprise.
Yeah, normal operating procedures for hospitals is run a fine margin on supplies they need, and I assume that most of them got their supplies they needed for next week, probably the week before or 2 weeks before they really needed them. They didn't stockpile a lot of supplies. And
I think that's obvious.
Yeah.
And if you go back to the first 2 or 3 weeks in March, we were all like going, "What's going on here?" But yeah,
exactly.
Again, back to what the guy said. People can do whatever they want to do. I wouldn't. I mean, you can run. You can walk into you can walk around New York right now without a mask, and you might be fine or you might not be. But there are a lot of places that are better than others, and I'm glad you called. Thank you very, very much. Great to have you on. Greg is in Atlanta. Hello, Greg.
Hey, Paul. How are you doing today?
We are great. Thank you.
Yeah, my condolences to the entire Shula family. We lost a legend, no question about it. But I wanted to talk with you about our Vols here on a roll on the recruiting trail. My Lord, man, they're taking them out of Florida. They're taking them out of Georgia. What's going on with Pruitt these days?
Well, I think what's happening is elite players are finally making the call to go back to Tennessee, and we really haven't seen it. I know some will argue that Butch Jones did really well in recruiting, and he got a couple of great players. It didn't do much with them, but he got a couple. Sure. But I think what Jeremy Pruitt is doing, he's finally breaking some barriers down that have needed to be taken down for a long, long time. And I joked with somebody
if you think that number one outside linebacker coming out of Alabama to Tennessee, do you think that's any kind of knock on the future of Alabama and the uncertainty of how long Saban's going to be there?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of different things in terms of where he was leaning before all this. I will tell you this: if Tennessee beats Saban this year, you'll start hearing more about that story.
Maybe not this year, but next year.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think anytime a great player leaves the state, whether he was leaning toward Auburn or Alabama, you're going to start hearing that, and that's the danger of coaching late in your career. And right now, my Alabama friends don't seem concerned, but. Well,
what about? Let me ask you about this. We also got the number one safety out of Florida as well too. Incredible guy.
I think that's a bigger deal because there's no. I don't need to tell you as a Tennessee person. you've got to climb over Florida before you can be taken seriously. And I really believe that that's the team Alabama has to beat. Hey, thanks for the call. Brett is in Alabama, and you are on the air. Hey, Brett.
Hello, Mr. Finebaum. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
I would like to bring a little attention. I've heard a lot of stories about doom and gloom here, and I want to tell you something good that personally I found out that what was going on here. I heard a young man on your show named Bryce Walder talk about his organization, the Beautiful Lives Project.
Yes, right. I think he's up in Indiana, isn't he?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I called the show last week and talked to one of your people there, and he got me in contact with Bryce, and I was so impressed with Mr. Wilder. He's incredible. He's helping people. He's changing things, which actually directly affects me. I'm legally blind, and I have never been to a football game to where I can actually see even the teams, tell the difference between the teams on the field. I can't ever see the football.
Right.
And I want to tell you that his organization, the Beautiful Lives Project, is changing that to where people just like me can see and experience the football game, because I would love to go see a football game. But
so what happens? How does it help you? Is my question.
Here's how it helps me. It puts me in contact, just like the Baltimore Orioles have a very strong support system around this, and Bryce is actually involved with them. It gets you on the field, gets you closer to where you can actually see what's going on, just like everybody else. Even at the Baltimore Orioles games, they have special ways that you can order food through Braille, and it's on the menu. They're the first ones to do it. Their people actually walk you and are trained to walk blind people down and sit them in their seat, which is wonderful. It's very difficult just to get from A to B and to just go order food, things that people take for granted. And this program is opening that up to be available for people like me, which I think is great. And I wanted to tell you thank you very much for spending the time and letting him come on, because you did that. It directly affects people like me. So thank you.
Well, I am really glad to hear that, Brett. You be careful. You take care of yourself, and stay in touch with us. John is up next in South Carolina. Hello, John.
Yeah, I just want to know how much.
You still there, John?
Yeah, can you hear?
Yeah, go. Go. I think I missed your first part of the call. Go right ahead.
I just want to know.
Yeah, I think the question was about Will Muschamp. I don't really know the answer. There was certainly a lot of conversation about Muschamp last year. Many said his buyout was too much. I said that the other day. I didn't think buyouts. I think buyouts were going to help coaches stay where they are. And as soon as I said that, Wake Forest paid off Danny Manning about $15 million. I think Will Muschamp right now is okay. It would take a repeat, I think, of what happened last year. But I think beyond that, I think the appetite for change has not quite reached DEFCON 1. We'll take a short break. We'll talk about the upcoming college football season in terms of what could happen on the field after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Welcome back. Great to have everyone here. And one thing we do throughout the entire college football season is talk to our friend Seth Walder. We are going to act like the season begins and try to figure out what it all means. We're talking about projections. Seth, great to have you back on the show, and we hope you're well. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Paul. I'm doing well. Hope you are too.
We are, and one thing, whether we spend so much time dealing with the unknown. Let's deal with some certainty here. We're having a season, and what's it going to look like, Seth? I know you put you guys have put the numbers, the predictor to the medal, and if we have a season, and we're going to assume we are, a lot of usual suspects.
Yeah, well, at the very top, yeah, a lot of usual suspects. The three teams that we give the best chance to win the national championship, like you said, in the event that season happens, then everything is normal. Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, in that order would be the three favorites to both make the playoff and win the national championship. Clemson, kind of the same story for them. They're going to have probably, we think, the best defense in college football. They're going to bring back Trevor Lawrence, another year of experience under his belt, and they're going to have an incredibly easy schedule for a Power 5 team, and so that's going to help give them a really easy road to the playoff and therefore the best chance to win the national championship.
Where have I heard that before? Ohio State, though, that's an interesting one. Not a surprise. I mean, this program has been on an amazing roll. They always find a way to screw it up. Last year, they didn't wait. They waited to the second half of the national semifinal to go into normal mode. So what do you see for the Buckeyes?
The Buckeyes are interesting because obviously they lose some incredible talent when you think about the top of the draft that just happened. But Ohio State is a team that actually, if you look at our efficiency numbers at the end of last year, we had them as the best team in college football, actually a little bit ahead of LSU. So that's their starting point. They lose some talent, but you have Justin Fields there. We expect big things from that offense in 2020. And so Ohio State may be a more competition in their conference, certainly a tougher schedule than Clemson, but not as tough as Alabama. We give Ohio State ultimately 64% chance to reach the playoff, 21% chance to win the national championship. We give Clemson like a 26% chance to be an undefeated national champion. Ohio State, that number's down at, I think, 6%.
It's almost ordained that Alabama will be on your list no matter what. But number 3, a little bit lower than some years. What are their issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're dealing with Alabama. You're going to have, firstly, you have the toughest conference, so that's always going to be the case for them. But just in terms of the certainty that you're going to have in Clemson and Ohio State, in both Clemson's defense and Ohio State's offense, maybe you're lacking that with Alabama. I will say that the model, because it got a decent look at Mac Jones and the offense with Mac Jones, it has a little more confidence than if Tua had just played throughout the whole season and we had less certainty about what Alabama's offense would look like. They're still in a really good position. They're still absolutely a primetime contender. We're talking here 17% chance to win the national championship and better than a coin flip to make the playoffs. So definitely strong outlook for Alabama and the best SEC team.
And to say the least, the next group of teams, while prominent, are considerably given a longer shot. Next up is Wisconsin, followed by, I mean, Wisconsin. They're number 4 on this list, but their odds are not that great, are they?
Right. So you're right. Like there's a huge drop off, and from that, there's that top 3, like you said, big drop off. And Wisconsin, to me, that's where the surprise really started because I would not have guessed before we ran the numbers that Wisconsin would be that team. For us, it just comes down to this is a team that was top 10 on both sides of the ball last year. They're bringing back a good chunk of their defense, got Jack Cohn back at quarterback, and then really it's timed up perfectly for them because they have this year where we think they're going to be really good. They don't have to play Ohio State. They don't have to play Penn State in the regular season. And so you just have a much better likelihood they could enter that Big Ten championship game 12-0, 11-1, and have a really good shot at getting to the playoff. But like you said, we're still talking about like a 1-3 shot for them to get to the playoff at this point, despite being 4th.
With Seth, you knew Georgia was coming soon, and here they are, 1, 2, 3, usually the very usual 5th position, right?
Right. I guess that's right. They're probably starting to get used to that. With Georgia, I think is also interesting because to me, the thing that we can look at right here and see the effect of that game against Alabama on their schedule. So Georgia is like you're alluding to, right? We think they're about as good as we thought they were going to be as their preseason rating entering last season and entering 2 seasons ago. About the same quality of team. But those teams we gave about a 45% chance to reach the playoff in the preseason, a stronger projection. Georgia, down at 26%. That's basically all because of the fact that they have to play the Crimson Tide this year. And now, obviously, they could win that game, but we make them underdogs to do so. If they were to beat Alabama, they would get back up to that 40, 45, 47% range. But that is a huge factor. I mean, there's just no getting around the fact that that is an obstacle that makes things tougher for Georgia this season.
The next couple of teams, LSU, Penn State, Oregon, and then Auburn. What stands out? Oklahoma comes after that for the first time. It doesn't look like Oklahoma has much of a shot at all.
Yeah, I mean, Big 12 is definitely in a tougher spot this year. You've got Oklahoma, and this is their narrowest edge, we think, over Texas. We do think there is a chance that they could actually be a playoff contender. You know, that was the thing people last year said. They felt like Texas was back, and our numbers said, no, don't think so. Now, with another year of Ellinger, we actually do think that Texas could have a shot. Oklahoma, this could be a time to get them back. But either way, we just don't think that the Big 12, either Texas or Oklahoma, is honestly that great. And so they're going to have a hard time getting to win that conference with just one loss. And so it's pretty long shot for the Big 12 to put a team into the playoff at all, honestly.
I mean, I could keep going, but the names and numbers are going to get pretty diminished. As you look at the rest of the field, Seth, anything stand out?
Well, there's a few things I think that stand out to us, like on a one-off. I guess I would say a few things. With the Pac-12, it just seems like such unfortunate timing for them that you have Oregon and USC that we would consider to be pretty good teams, but they each have a really brutal non-conference game against Ohio State or Alabama, respectively. That's a tough break for them, and so we have them, again, as a long shot to get in the playoff. And then I think, this is not necessarily, playoff related, but there's a few things, like we really are high on the Louisville offense. We think that could be a kind of breakout unit this year. That's sort of interesting to me, though they're not like a playoff contender. Clemson has the ACC in its hand. Those are things that stand out to me, I would say.
Now, one or two, you have Georgia with a significantly better chance to get to the division within the league in the playoffs than Florida, so I think it's portending that. Obviously, with Alabama, Auburn is the next team in the SEC. Am I correct?
To win the SEC?
Just to, in terms of the percentages, I believe that you had, just as you break them down, obviously we're down to what, the fourth or fifth school right now.
Right, I'm sorry, to reach 5. Yes, we have Auburn ahead of Florida there. Like you said, yeah, exactly, because of the division. Florida, I honestly was just looking at them, and it's just a little bit down on them in terms of. Obviously, things went fairly well last year. Again, Kyle Trask back, and he had a nice season, but they lose some talent. It hasn't been as consistent a program over the last 4 years, which is something that the model does consider. And so it's just a little bit skeptical of Florida's ability to challenge for the East. It could happen, but it's not as high on them.
What does the predictor say about the actual possibility of a season? Just kidding, of course.
If only it knew. If only it knew. No, it is tough. Like we're projecting these things, right, Paul? And it's like we don't know at all what this is. Is there going to be a season? If there's a season, what will it look like? Will it look anything like a normal season? It's such a hard thing, and for us, where we're like trying to talk about all the things we know, it's hard for someone like me to say anything, but I don't know, and I have to be able to, we have to be able to say we don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a constant here, but at least for 10 minutes, it was great to forget about that and act like we really were going to have a season starting on September 5th. Seth, come back soon. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks, Paul. You too.
You got it. Great stuff. As most of that's pretty obvious, but that's college football. It hasn't really changed very much since the college football playoff. Mostly the same schools. We are coming back.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome back. Love to hear from you at 855-242-7285. And Pride is up next in Arizona. Hello, Pride.
Greetings from out west, Paul.
Oh, great to hear from you. Thank you.
I listen to you, or I'll watch your program every chance I get. You had a discussion about half an hour ago about COVID-19 and college football attendance.
Yes.
And you indicated that college administrators were looking for a guideline from, I don't know, the NCAA or whoever it was. They were looking for this guideline to proceed with how they was going to handle attendance. And what I would like to do is read you Webster's definition of a guideline. It's an indication or outline of future policy or conduct. In other words, to put a finer point to it, a guideline is not a mandate. You don't have to follow a guideline. So college administrators could do what they want.
Well, yeah, let me explain one thing, and I think you probably know what I'm going to say. Your college, in terms of intercollegiate athletics, you are going to go with your conference. You belong to a conference, therefore, that's the guideline that you'll follow. So the SEC schools, all 14, will do what the ACC schools and the Big Ten school. I mean, they may not all do the same thing, but they will all, within the conference, I don't think there'll be any dissent.
Right. Well, here again, I don't know how strongly a particular administrator may feel about that, but in any case, I just wanted to point that out, that they can. Well, yeah,
I don't know really. First of all, the NCAA per se does not have jurisdiction over what college football does.
Yes,
so I mean, they could put out an edict saying these are for our member all of our 300 and whatever, and they probably will. But if you're in the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or any of the other ones, you will likely follow your own lead. I don't think we're going to have any outliers here. I think it's going to be a pretty clear choice. And you know, you're out in Arizona. I mean, California, Oregon, and Washington are the three schools most people are looking at because
and they're all
the governors out there have been very clear.
The most, you know.
Yeah, but and you know, you would say New York and New Jersey, but quite frankly, there's not a lot of college football in New York or New Jersey. But Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington, there's a lot of people to be heard from. Hey, thank you very much for the call. Really do appreciate it, Pride. You stay well. Bill is in Tennessee. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Paul. Hear me?
What's up with you?
Hey, I was wanting to know, I coach high school football, but I was just always wondering, you know, I'm a big Tennessee man, but say somebody's number one like LSU won last year. It's just a debate I've always had. Or, you know, in Clemson, they've been number one all the time. Don't you think a team, even though I know the strength of schedule, sometimes they base that on that, but I'm number one till somebody beats me. You know, I like what coach from Clemson said, you know, Dabo said, well, we're still number one, you know. He always debated that a little bit. I was just wondering what people thought about that. I think I ought to be number one till somebody beats us, even though you don't play.
You know, it's interesting. I've asked Nick Saban that question before when he is the defending champion, and he's pretty quick to point out that was not the same team I have this year, and you understand that being a coach. So I think theoretically that's true, but you know, being the defending champion matters a lot until the first game, and then it really doesn't matter at all.
Yeah, I know your players change and the season changes, you know, and I just think a team, you know, sometimes ought to be number one till they get beat, you know.
Let me ask you, how long have you coached, Bill?
About 20 years.
What are you in East Tennessee or somewhere else?
Yeah, East Tennessee high school.
Well, that's what's going on with high school football for the fall. Can you tell us what you've heard?
Yeah, as far as I know, we haven't done nothing. You know, some of the kids work out just 3 or 4 at a time, but you know, this COVID-19, a lot of kids just don't get to, you know, do stuff at home. You know.
So what as a coach, what have you, I would assume they're not letting you come to school, are they?
Oh, no, we're not coming to school. Some of the kids do their stuff at home, do workouts on their own, but the school's closed, for kids like that. So, well,
give us some advice. What are not that I'm an elite athlete, but what should we do to stay in shape during this quarantine?
Oh, to stay in shape in this quarantine, I'd do like old Jerry Rice. These hills to run up here in East Tennessee. A lot of videos that people's got on the thing, and you can do a lot of things at home to work at, and stay in shape, to running and stretching and all. That's what we've told a lot of our kids, and I think that'd work great,
I lived in East Tennessee for 4 years. I don't think I'd want to run up some of those hills, man. That's
that's what I'm telling you. It's tough up here in East Tennessee.
But I do remember reading Jerry Rice's book, and he would work out in San Francisco where the hills were just terrible, and he said that's what motivated him.
Yeah, he's just one of the great motivators that I've seen, and I try to tell some of my kids, him. That's just like the Jordan thing, him and Jordan was just the same, and the kids, if they work out at home, you can get a great workout on your own if you just motivate yourself and do.
Well, I appreciate the update, Coach. I hope you're back in East Tennessee on Friday nights here in late August, and we're all back to normal. Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Speaking of normal, we'll talk to one of the people that began the fight for the name, image, and likeness. He will join us next.